So today I'm joined by Geoff Wilson. Hi Geoff, how are you?
Hello, Aaron. How are you? You keeping well?
Yeah, all good considering. Um, yeah, I want to talk specifically about the challenges that football and football clubs in general are facing right now. Um, from a marketing perspective and from a business perspective, obviously there's been no football for months now. The Premier League are kind of looking as if they're going to start getting some games on, but for clubs lower down the leagues, etc. What are the challenges right now that they face?
Yeah, I mean, great question, Aaron. I think there's a number of broad challenges, and I think the obvious one is getting back playing, and whether that is at the elite end, at the Premiership, etc., or whether that is at grassroots or youth level, they're getting back playing is going to be just a humongous challenge for everybody. Not only if you're at the Premier level, everything regarding being able to identify whether you've got the virus or not, the isolation around it all, making sure that everything from the broadcasters, the stadium staff, let alone the players, are all in isolation and tested throughout a 2-week period. But even if you take that down to the grassroots and the youth level, how do you actually test an amateur league player for if they've got the virus or not? So I think there's a huge area getting back playing and that whole area of testing. I think from clubs, and this is clubs again at all sides, there's a huge area and issue around income via expenditure. No matter what happens, the income is being pressed because there's no ticketing, there's maybe sponsorship renewals are coming up, broadcast revenues on hold, etc. And even you take that down again to the amateur level, there's nobody maybe going into the social clubs, nobody paying for money to watch games, members aren't paying their money. So all of that income is being reduced. On the expenditure side, most people are still paying costs, and those costs predominantly are staff or playing costs or player costs. So I think that's obviously a huge challenge. And I think the area, if we take it slightly further into coaching and refereeing, I think getting and engaging and keeping engaged within coaching and coach education, I think is a challenge, as well as referee education. So for me, I think there's a number of big challenges. I think the big one, because it's so obvious, is the challenge and the reliance on one or two income streams for the top teams. We see now more than ever there's a reliance on broadcast revenue, and that's something that you can really see come to the fore over the last month or two.
Yeah, and so what should clubs be focusing on in the short term? And we'll split that to lower league, amateur level clubs, and then for the elite as well.
Yeah, again, for me, I think this is the time when clubs should be embedded and engaged in their community. That's no matter if you're at a youth level or even if you're at the Premier level, this is all about being engaged, you going out to the community or the community coming to you. You've got to be engaged to build that relationship and build that deep relationship with the community. I think for me, it's a time now for strategic planning. It's a time now to look at what is the roadmap, not only post-COVID-19, but long term. This is a time to look at all of that strategic planning and where you're looking to get to. I think this is a time for managing your costs. Now, whether that means applying for relevant government grants or other foundations, but this is a time to really manage your costs and look at those costs. And I think this is a time to manage digital revenue. Look at these new models that are happening, and how can we learn from the likes of a Disney, from a Netflix, from an Amazon in terms of new digital revenue. So to me, I think they're the key ones. For me though, as a foundation, it's all about getting your data right and getting the single view of the customer, getting that real foundation right. So to me, those would be the 5 or 6 key things that a club should be focusing on at present.
Yeah. So let's focus a little bit on the strategic side of things. What specifically can clubs do to set a strategy that's going to help in the long term?
Yeah, so for me, a strategic plan is all about identifying your vision. So where do you want to get to? Where are you going? Where are you heading to? Once you've created your vision, then you create your mission. Why do you exist? So NASA is about putting a person into space. That's why they exist, but everybody knows that. Then you're talking about your values, and that gets back to the point I mentioned earlier, your values as a club, specifically in the community and working alongside the community. And then once you've done that, you look at the goals. Those goals are broad priorities that you need to focus on to achieve your vision. And then under each goal, then you have smart key performance indicators, objectives in essence, under each of those goals. And then finally, you've got your action plans, the tasks that you need to do that. I think for me, once you have that structure, your vision, your mission, your goals, your objectives, and your action plans and tasks, it's all about implementation, making it happen. Have I got the right structure in place? Have I got the right budget in place? And then more importantly, physically doing it and monitoring it. Am I on schedule? Am I actually doing that right? So for me, I think those are the key bits when you're creating a strategy. But I think more and more clubs need to be community focused. If one thing COVID-19 has taught us, people love and embrace, the community club and the community spirit. And that's what we are, individuals, people that love to be together. So I think those clubs that have that as part of their strategy, I think that's a very interesting area.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. But one of the things that we usually find in a downturn are that marketing budgets and marketing teams are usually one of the first things to get cut. How do we balance that? Because obviously clubs are going to have to reduce their outgoings, etc., reduce costs. They're going to have to look for savings. How do they manage, from a marketing perspective, all those elements that you've just said, but with a reduced, possibly a reduced budget?
Yeah, I think that will definitely happen. There will be a reduced budget. I think those clubs that don't do that, that invest in their brand, they will come out stronger. So my thought would be, don't cut on things the likes of that. There's other costs you can look at. This is a time to build your brand and to engage with your key stakeholders. But for me, I think what a marketing and communications person will need to do now, and you can see that happening through COVID-19, is use the players more. The players are almost becoming in themselves nearly bigger a brand than the club in for certain players. Look at Ronaldo, the number of people that follow him. So that is a very, very interesting space. How do you use the players more? And it's not from a sponsorship point of view, it's from a deep, deep engagement point of view. So I think number one is greater use of the players in interactive ways. I think number two, they've got to use technology. So whether that is VR, AR, artificial intelligence that helps with reducing customer service costs, I do think technology needs to be looked at. And in and associated with that is things such as mobile gaming will need to be looked at. And it gets back, so that's for me number two. I think number three is looking at data and personalization and insight. How do they get to know who their fans are, what they're doing, and when they're sending something out, it's highly personalized. Not just their name, but the rest of the content is absolutely personalized. And for me, the marketing and the communications team need to look at new revenue streams, the new digital revenue streams that are out there, and seek to maximize those things. I think that the last couple of things I would say in stadium, I think they need to look at the cashless environment. They need to look at ticketless through their mobile app. So using those technology to do that. But getting back to, they need to look at the fans. Where are the fans congregating virtually, and how can they be part of that relationship and part of that conversation? Or even better, can they bring that platform together? What do I mean by that? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all brilliant platforms. But as a club, they're not talking to you. those fans are on their platforms. I want my fans on my platform. So where can we do like a Facebook, a Twitter type environment, but on my platform, whether that's through an app, whether it's through some sort of a other web technology platform, so that they're in my sphere. They're not, I'm not saying don't do Facebook and Twitter. I'm not saying that. But how do we make sure they're in my sphere of digital and they're in it for a long time and long term?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And you've kind of touched on the next two questions that I wanted to talk about. And one was going to be diversification of the business and the marketing, how they communicate with fans. And the other was how technology and digital communications are going to help change that, or even evolve the way that clubs talk to fans. We've seen it for the last 10 years with the emergence of social media, but now how do we develop that? Obviously, with COVID-19 and the situation we're in, a lot of people are using Zoom, using a lot of new digital technologies to interact, etc. So are there good opportunities there for clubs to diverse the way they communicate and go further with that?
Yeah, I think absolutely the answer is yes. I think for me, it all starts with research. Research with what your fans want, because that want is changing. Without doubt, how they behave is changing. So I think research with the fans, but I also think researching with other sports, and I also think outside of sport. You know, you go to Disney, and Disney has the magic ring, the magic band, and it takes photographs. It puts everything into the band. It talks about with the app in terms of whether a ride, the queues on the ride, all of that data. So how can we identify with research what your current fans want, what other sports are doing, and what other non-sports are doing from a fan engagement point of view? For me, I think we cannot lose the sight of traditional. So when people come back to the stadium eventually, we've got to give them an amazing experience. We've got to give them the Disney experience. Everything from when you park the car when you leave the home, to when you park the car, to the quality of the burger or the quality of the pie, to when you exit, to the entertainment in the fan zone, has all got to be stepped up. And then on digital, we've got to look at so the Gen Z, they want data. They want small little snippets. They want different camera angles. They want unique behind the scenes. They want to watch games on the move. They want to watch the highlights of a certain goal that's maybe been scored 3 seconds or even more. Now, broadcast rights and all in between. But to me, I think that's what we've got to understand, that Gen Z, what are they looking at now and where that's going to be, because they're going to be the fans of the future. They watch content differently and they're more interactive with that content.
Yeah. And who should be leading this innovation? Should it be the clubs? Should it be the leagues themselves? Is there do we need to create some kind of body that is going to oversee these changes? What are your thoughts on how we implement these things?
Yeah, I mean, to me, historically, it's all down to one or two innovative clubs. And those innovative clubs are the ones that people then start to look up to. They wait and see, how does it go? Maybe, for example, they've just got into esports. Oh, I'm not sure yet. Let's see how that club gets on. And if they get on well in esports, right, then we go. So I think traditionally there are always one or two clubs who will lead that innovation. And to me, innovation is good. For me personally, I think what should happen, there should be a representative of the clubs that come together that looks at innovation, that looks at all aspects of how do we engage the fan, how do we look at new revenue streams, how do we look at internal processes, digital transformation. So in other words, a manual process that's digitalized that saves the club money. So there needs to be a body set up within each league that really looks at this, so that those bodies within the league, then they've got the buy-in, and that needs to be that sort of subcommittee that's really looking at innovation, and innovation that can improve the clubs and the leagues. Why I think a committee is, you'll always do what we've always done in the past. You'll always wait until one or two clubs do it, and then next year you'll follow them. Well, why not actually do it together as a league and look at things such as augmented reality, virtual reality, the impact of all of these artificial intelligence, and do it league-wise, so you're all doing it together. I think that, to me, would be something of interest.
Yeah. And do you think that's something that would help a league like the EFL and the Premier League to further grow? And we see the Bundesliga kind of have that kind of system in place. The MLS are quite centralised in the way they're structured. Do you think that would help clubs in England if we had that structure in place?
Yeah, I do. And I would even move that right the way down the leagues. And you have like an innovation committee for each of the respective bodies. You've mentioned the Bundesliga. La Liga is another one. I mean, they're coming out nearly every month with some new technology. And whether that is on the, let's say, player performance side on field, whether that is digital transformation, admin and stadium, or whether that is on fan engagement, these leagues are coming out with these innovations all the time. Whereas in other leagues, it's more the one or two clubs are leading the innovation rather than league-wise. And I understand there's different issues with different models, but you've got to be better doing these things together. You've got to be.
Yeah. Geoff, thank you very much. We'll leave it there. It's been great to talk to you, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, Aaron, and all the best to you.